Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you? Very good, thanks, yeah.
Munster are back, though.
Well, I was just chatting to Philip Egan out at the desk there, and he said, look, sure, it'll be a day out for Munster on Saturday. You have Herbert Park's lovely markets there in the morning.
Yeah.
You can pop into the bridge for a beer, get a day out, do a bit of shopping.
Yeah.
And kind of just saying, look, no point in turning up, really, Philip will kill me now for saying that, but anyway. It has that bit of a feel to it, but look, we're going to start with Munster. We got to go back and talk about Connacht as well. I think that was
well, and
for
Ulster.
me, unbelievable. But for Munster, the result was brilliant. Getting the win.
You'd feel good about life if everybody who was injured hadn't got injured.
Correct. If you had that team going to play a rotated Leinster on Saturday, because Leo Cullen's come out and said that, obviously with the final the week after that, he will kind of switch it around again. But it's really difficult. But Munster can't do anything really about what Leinster do. They have the ability to make lots of changes and still be top notch, really. But it's unfortunate again. The injuries. You just think RG Snyman, when he's back, his presence gets another bang in the head. HIA almost certainly ruling him out because he had one a couple of weeks ago in South Africa as well. So Calvin Nash, Conor Murray, Peter O'Mahony, Malachi Fekitoa at the end, Diarmuid Barnes. So I think there's six of the starters.
Right.
It's difficult because they don't have the same type of depth. Now, to be fair, the players come on. I thought someone who's done brilliantly in recent weeks is Fineen Wycherley. He was incredible. That was a very physical game the other night. Having Ty Byrne back playing 80 minutes after 3 months shows it's kind of freakish scenario, but it's the way you look after yourself when you're injured nowadays, and he was great. Gavin Coombs. Malachi Fekitoa, who's leaving, I thought he was outstanding, and he has been in recent times. He's a real player if he switched on, and Frisch was good. So they have a lot of positives. I think if you look at the stats, they're kind of crazy. Munster are down for 36 missed tackles, which doesn't really, you know what I mean? If you were to watch the game, Jerry, you'd think, God, Munster were brilliant defensively, which they were. It was a lot of close-in stuff. I watched that back where Glasgow player had stepped someone, kind of wriggled through a tackle, and then they'd be tackled after that. There was a lot of that, a lot of footwork evasion, defenders beaten. Glasgow's numbers were very high. Munster had one clean line break. That was from Conor Murray for the red card from Tom Jordan. So it was a crazy kind of game. I was there. I think the first 15 minutes you felt, God, this is going to be difficult. But they dug in there, and I think they can take a lot of credit for what they did in the last few weeks. When you think the 3 away results, and we know in sport how difficult it is to win away from home. It can be a real factor for in any sport, but to go to the Stormers, the Sharks, and now Glasgow, 3 big scalps.
Yeah.
And given the Stormers hadn't lost in 21 or 2 games there, Glasgow haven't been beaten
all season,
year and a half.
Yeah, so 17 months. Yeah,
they're the kind of things it doesn't give you trophies, but it shows the grit and determination that you've stuff to work on. The fundamentals of a team like Munster, I would have said, I've probably banged this drum for a while, and whether people agree or not, when you played it, from my time playing there, it's you have to bring a fight, a determination, a work rate, an honesty, and a passion. Sometimes people think they're given in sport, but you kind of have to have them be very aware of them, particularly when you play for that team. That's what I learned anyway, and I think we've seen that in abundance in recent weeks. So, anytime you criticise a team in any sport, I think it comes down to, if you don't see that work rate and that effort and desire, you lose matches. Sometimes you're not good enough, sometimes you're lacking quality, all that kind of stuff in any sport again. But the last few weeks they've shown some fight, and that is a real good, that's where your foundations to getting better, upskilling, bringing in a little bit more quality, getting 1 or 2 young players coming through from your academy, all that kind of stuff. As I said, it doesn't win you trophies. So the fight and determination and physicality they showed the other night was brilliant. One player, again, and I keep mentioning him, some people don't agree, but I think John Klein has improved dramatically as a player from where he was in 2019, where he got a lot of criticism, some of it justified when he got picked ahead of Devon Toner. Phenomenal, like epitomises the kind of player you'd want to go out in the field with. I'm not saying he's better than Ryan Baird, James Ryan, Ian Henderson, but he should be in the mix for the World Cup. He should be looked at and he should be spoken about. And for the people online who kind of continuously say, well, his hands aren't good and he's should never have been picked, he's improved dramatically as a player, and the work rate. And Glasgow's maul has damaged people all season, and Munster stopped it the other night. They had a few scrum penalties, but by and large their scrum was really good.
So they can actually look forward. I understand the injury profile now is not great, right? But at the same time, there is a little bit of depth that they've built. A lot of the injury problems that they had, particularly in the second round back row, have all cleared up. So Snyman's loss obviously is huge, but there is at least some strength and depth there that they'll be able to name players who we're like excited to see into the future what they're going to do.
Yeah, Edwin Adogbo was there the other night, so he could come into the mix. Such a young, powerful, exciting player. Thomas Ahern, I think, is back training. Alex Candellan has played well recently. John Hodnett coming off the bench for Peter Mann. I thought Hodnett was outstanding as well. Defensively, the tackles, low tackle focus. So there is a bit of depth there, I think. And it look, it's a tough situation for him. And again, I said this last week, if you buy into that, we're in bonus territory. It does take a little bit of pressure off. But, going to Glasgow, if Munster were beaten, you kind of say, well, they made Europe, they made the knockout stages, turned around a dreadful start to the season, decent finish. There's two ways of looking at that. You are in a bit of bonus territory on Saturday because people, will expect Leinster to, that they'll just win the game and get through to another final. But, that can stimulate you as well if you use them the right way. But it was a great win for him. There's certainly areas that they need to be better in.
Dennis Leamy possibly worth a mention as well. I think he was name checked by Graham Rowntree after the match in terms of the work he's done with the defence, especially since that Glasgow game in December. When you think back and the errors across the pitch, Leamy's done a lot of good work.
Yeah, and I think defence isn't just it's about attitude as well. As I said, the stats of the missed tackles kind of look bad on paper, but Munster were superb defensively. I think they were really aggressive and physical. Glasgow, a very powerful side, and they were incredibly physical, and Munster stood up to that. So yeah, I think Dennis has done a great job. And if you look at Munster where they were probably last couple of seasons, there's certainly a lot to build on and be optimistic about, because their attack is so much better and they're trying to play, and they've two wingers now that are looking for multiple involvements. I'm not saying that they're not going to win anything. We didn't expect them to win anything, but they're in a good place, and I think if
you can build on this. It didn't feel like Munster were building on anything over the last couple of years.
There's a lot of repeat, wasn't there, in the last couple of years?
That's the definition of insanity. So let's move on, because we do need to talk about Ulster and Connacht. Andy Friend said that he met Dan McFarlane for coffee in the morning of the game. McFarlane was like, "Oh, look at you, we're in bonus territory." Had that conversation. He's like, "Absolutely, because we, got to take the pressure off us." The pressure on Ulster ratcheted up before the game by Stephen Ferris and after the game by Stephen Ferris. But he was 100% correct. It has been a bad season for Ulster. The rumours of an unhappy camp, the 10 players leaving. As I was making the case, most of those players, doesn't really matter they're leaving. Some of them are first choice, fair enough, but I think it's been a bit of a disaster of a season for Ulster, where it looked like they had at the end of last year this young attacking threat, very exciting backline, and they just have not kicked on at all.
Yeah, it's been, I think they started really well and they were in a very good position in the league for a long period. December in Europe kind of started a bad run, away to Sale. They were walloped in that game. Not progressing in Europe. It's always a kind of, they should be looking to say we need to be in knockout stages in Europe. When that doesn't happen, it's a disappointment. That's the way I view it anyway. For a club of Ulster's kind of size and stature, January poor. Losing in Benetton. Munster beat them in Belfast. Recently, they've gone on a good run of up to this point 5 league wins. they gave Leinster, you could say, a challenge in that quarter-final of Europe. But I think it's unfair. I agree a little bit with Andy Friend that, you know, when you're in that situation, it's a similar situation if for Graham Rowntree, if they went out, this bonus territory thing. Ulster's a bit different, I think, because there's an impatience there about them, that they have very exciting players.
Yeah.
I think, and they don't seem to know really what way they're playing at times. I think their maul has been superb this year. I think they have got a little bit of steel. We've always kind of questioned their ability up front, but there's a couple of key positions, Jared, that they're
10.
Yeah, look, it's hard on Billy Burns, and I don't like, you know, you don't want to personalise it, but I think, you know, their front row has been a problem as well. Stephen Kitsoff is coming in. And it's very similar situation to Munster's situation. The reality is, how many Ulster fellas are on the Irish team?
Like
starters.
None.
Yeah, you see, and that's it, and that's where you need to get to. So, and that's the yardstick really. And you know, Munster have one or two, and Murray, O'Mahony, Byrne. Henderson, when he's fit, would start.
Kitsoff's
Rob Herring's in there a lot.
Kitsoff's a great sign,
brilliant
right?
player.
But he is a loose head, right?
Yeah, he's a loose head.
Jamang
Allen's leaving now, the tight head. So,
should you be spending all your money on a loose head, or is it actually better to kind of?
It'd be better to have a tight head if they're available. Yes, because that's really the cornerstone of your pack, really. But
maybe he'll be a ball carrier, and he'll add a little bit of that to them. In fairness, they don't have that.
It's difficult to be over. I find it hard to. I just think there's something missing there, and I think I don't know if it's a happy camp.
Ferris would say it's not. You know.
Yeah, you hear little rumours that they're not a happy camp at times, and it's been a real roller coaster up and down. It was very eerie. But aside from all that, Connacht were outstanding the other night, and I think I said it here on Friday, and a lot of people said it, that this was a very dangerous proposition for Ulster because Connacht have a recent run of form.
Yeah.
Mac Hansen being back, Bundy Aki, a lot of their players are kind of
and the emotion
showing a bit of a spark as well recently, and they're on a good run. They were outstanding, and really.
Prendergast, like, he's on the fringes of Ireland selection.
Yeah, he was very good the other night.
Very versatile as well.
Yeah, he was superb, and Seamus Hurley-Langton, he was outstanding. You know, I think his overall performance, his abrasiveness, his ability in the breakdown, some of the lines he ran for the carries, and I think that set the tone. They set the tone pretty early with not being. And when you're the underdog and when your backs are to the wall and there is an expectation there that the home team are kind of going to bully you, they're going to maul you off the park, they're going to out-scrummage you, it created a real edge to Connacht, and they continued that edge over 80 minutes. The hard yards, the work rate, the fitness level they showed was outstanding, and they deserved to be there. You know, you didn't look at that game and say, well, Connacht kind of fluked it.
Yeah.
Throughout the game, they had that kind of feel about them that they were going to win this game, and Ulster were kind of dead in their feet. So there's a lot of questions to be asked about Ulster, why they lacked that energy the other night. Were they naive in thinking they were just going to kind of turn up and use their physicality and probably a little bit more size? Connacht aren't like that, and I think it was a great result for Andy Friend, given it could have been his last game.
Can you make an argument against the Stormers, or is that a bridge too far?
It's obviously for any team that would go and play the Stormers in South Africa, it's going to be difficult. I think John Dobson, their coach, was kind of concerned with that Munster performance. There's one of them in every team where they kind of get caught. It's hard to shift the momentum sometimes in rugby when on the day the opposition are like, you know, really pumped and emotionally right for a game, and you start to make mistakes, you force things. So because of the collisions and in rugby like that, it can slip away from you and you can't shake off the opposition. But I think they've learned from that. They were very good against the Bulls on Saturday. So it's a big task, but This is not now the quote I'm saying about bonus territory. Connacht are in that bonus territory now because they've progressed.
Yeah.
They're in the last four.
And I think they have a bunch of players who've got Ireland experience, who've justified their selection, who presumably are having an influence on. Finlay Bealham was back, obviously, and that's making everybody who plays for Connacht think, actually, I can have the dream of playing for Ireland while playing for this team. Which, for let's face it, the vast majority of Connacht's history, you had to leave Connacht to get selected for Ireland.
Yes, correct. And the only time we really saw a big group of Connacht players en masse was 2016 when they won the league, then beat Leinster in Glasgow. There was 5 or 6 of them on that Irish tour to South Africa. So they're playing for a lot as well, because Andy Farrell will be watching all this stuff. Bundy Aki showed the type of player he is, and the quality he has, and the experience and the physicality, big turnovers, making hard yards, and so it was a great performance for Connacht. They deserve massive credit for that.
Okay, we haven't talked about Leinster. It was a mix of their first and second teams, and it was never really in doubt. The quality of Leinster's performance in various stages, like the Harry Byrne crossfield kick, that was sensational execution from him. Maybe he gets a lucky bounce, I don't know. Maybe he's practiced it a gazillion times and he knew exactly what he was doing. And then the camera pans to the lads in the audience, like, he's pretty good, he's very good, he'd play for Ireland, he's amazing, he's missing. All right, good strength and depth for this team. Like, it's hard for us to keep saying new things about Leinster.
Yeah, we're probably repeating ourselves, but it's just the seamless transition to make 9 changes in a team, and just to have the detail and the accuracy. And there's a sense with Leinster, they don't panic, and they just put so much pressure on you in every situation. They're obviously all at a very high level from a resilience point of view. They don't, nothing seems to faze them, and they just seem to back themselves. And there's a belief there that they can get these tries, and the way they can change gears as well. And then they drop back a gear or two and just do the simple things really well, which can be really frustrating if you're trying to get the ball back off them or attack them, because there's no gaps, there's no chinks there. Grant Williams, the scrum half, gets a crazy try to start the game. He's a super player and he's capable of that, but Leinster just don't panic up the field, and they've three quick tries in a short period of time, and that's the game gone.
Quinlan Doris, majestic again, hardly a surprise.
He's just a wonderful player. It's consistent, it's constant. His skill levels are just through the roof.
His level never drops. Like, it never
doesn't.
Drops.
And Van der Fleer, they're similar type of guys who just. Jack Conan has been brilliant in recent times as well. He came on for Scott Penny. So when you're naming these guys, it's why they're international players, Shane, and why they're consistently performing against the world's best, because they're right up there. So Doris is just a sensational player to have. And his reading in the game is brilliant as well. He's just able to pop up at the right places and the right times. That's not by accident. That's by reading the game, being in good positions. And I think, you're rolling players off the bench then who are internationals. Gibson Park and Luke McGrath did really well. And I think if you were looking for any little chink in the armour, you think the halfbacks will go after them if you're the Sharks. But no, Harry Byrne was really good as well, and Gatai and Frawley in the centre. So it's hard to see anyone really stopping them, because they're on a level now that would please any coach to be in that position. So Scoreland maybe flattered him a little bit at times in that second half, but I think when Max Deegan scores the try in the second half, that's the game. It's gone. It's over, and they're happy to contain then a little bit when they have to for periods of time, and they just do the basics so well.
Max Deegan is 26. If you were sitting down advising him on his career, what would the advice be? Stick with Leinster and harvest as many medals as you possibly can, or become first choice for one of the other provinces and force your way into Ireland selection?
For me, and again, he's in a very good environment, a happy environment, high performing environment. He's the one player I think about in the last couple of years. He got capped before Quinlan Doris. They were kind of around the same time. Maybe he was a year or two ahead, and Doris has just gone on to a different level. your career's over. It goes pretty quickly. And for me, I'd want Ireland caps. I think you need Ireland caps. You need to be in that mix. There's a risk of moving provinces and it not working out. We've seen that happen with some players. We've seen other players, it worked for them. There's no point in going back through all of them. But I think he's at a moment now. But I think he signed a new contract. Scott Penny signed a new contract.
Scott Penny's a bit younger, so I kind of and also like the age profile of Van der Fleer. Van der Fleer could do another 5 years and make us all stupid, but he might not. You know, like the wear and tear.
And you look at the open size. They've got Will Connors as well. So Scott Penny. They have a lot of players. I don't know. It depends what they're feeling themselves. If you believe in your own head that you're going to get into the team.
Well, I was going to say, because so Jimmy O'Brien is also 26, but Jimmy O'Brien is so bloody good at the moment that like he's stayed in the Leinster environment, got selected for Ireland.
He was starting in Europe. If the way I would look at it is, it's fine. Nowadays you're not really dropped, you're rotated.
Yeah.
But when the European quarter-final comes around, or a European semi-final, or a European final, are you starting?
Well, Max Deegan was in South Africa and Jimmy O'Brien wasn't on that.
Correct.
So
but if I was advising him,
I think
he needs to start thinking about it quickly, because I think he's good enough to play for Ireland. But playing, I don't know, you want to start in the big European games. If you're not starting in those games, it's difficult. But then if there's an injury or two in that Irish back row, there's a real chance that Max Deegan will be
straight in
the mix or there. So it's a difficult one. It's not like it was before. If you weren't starting your province, you were down the grade and there was no way you were going to be picked for it. We saw that with Scott Penny in the Six Nations when he got called in. So it's a difficult one for him. But I think next year you'd want to be. He needs to start starting those big European games.
Are you hearing much talk in Limerick about Quinlan Dooley? 30 points for Turnier College yesterday to win the AIL for the first time. They beat Clontarf. 20 points against Cork Con in the semi-final as well. This lad's a bit of a
He was back up to Ben Healy at Glenstall, wasn't he? What a performance from Turnier that second half. You could check a load of their players. Super win. Great to see the atmosphere in the crowd as well.
Buzzing.
You know, I always get a warm feeling about the club game, and you know where it all started for me with Shannon. It was brilliant, you know, for both clubs. It's a tough place to get to. It's so competitive, the AIL now, and that second half yesterday, I think Clontarf will be frustrated with their discipline and some mistakes, but the Turnier side and the backline in particular have punished teams all season. If you're loose, if you get a turnover, some of the tries they got were sensational.
50 points on the board as well, not bad.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Quinny, good stuff. Thanks a million. See you again on Friday. It is 8.
See you in Herbert Park, will I, Ger?
Yeah.
Saturday morning.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Drinking our vitamin H. Well, the Munster fans will travel, right? Big numbers.
I'm sure they will.
This being their cup final and everything, what?
Yeah.
Hey.
They're in bonus territory, a day out in Dublin, yeah. Philip Egan. I'll bring it back and Philip.
Oh God, if Munster win, it's going to be terrible.